of you might be facing at your respective companies. Essentially, we have seen different personas within an organization, and maybe there is a senior management, maintenance manager, supervisors, uh, reliability analysis, and then people on the shop floor. So everybody has a different set of issues to deal with. But mostly at a very higher level, if you go, people like to understand what the asset utilization is, what the service availability is, reliability, how are we really monitoring the total cost of asset ownership over its life cycle, how can we extend the life of the asset, how can we get more from the asset, getting timely alerts, critical issues, events, etc. Also, at different levels, people would like to understand how to optimize the spare parts inventory, and then identify any process bottlenecks, etc. And on a day-to-day side, there is a compliance type of analysis, reporting, then generating any other day-to-day reports to do the work. So again, this is not in any way trying to address all of it, but just at a high level, there is always a relationship with the actual business problems, and different personas have different business problems to handle. So in any maintenance organization as well as asset in a reliability organization, what we have seen is different set of dilemmas that they might have in order to make their decisions, where to focus their maintenance efforts, identifying areas where they need to allocate the resources, where can they get higher value, what are the high value opportunities where they can get maximum benefit. Any other strategies that you might have for achieving the goals, for even arriving at the strategy, we need some sort of analysis. We all make process changes as part of continuous improvement programs, and even in arriving at what changes to be made and whether those changes are yielding any results, all these things needs to be monitored, needs to be analyzed. We all use a lot of processes, and some of the processes themselves become a bottleneck. So we want to see the collective progress of different aspects of processes as well. And then many organizations have different initiatives, RCM, CBM, PDM, or any other initiatives that currently are underway. We would like to see whether they are yielding any results, or how are we executing on those initiatives. And then for companies which has multiple sites, and even at an industry level, they would like to do benchmarking. They want to highlight the best practices, identify areas that need attention, or areas that can be improved, some outliers, those types of things. And at an organization level, from an upper management, it is very, very easy, or sometimes it's difficult to communicate the goals, and reporting or analysis can help in communicating with everyone involved in all the stakeholders in this particular practice. And at a management level also, people would like to understand the performance and where can they take timely action. So again, these are very high level, some of the dilemmas, and some of these problems can be solved by experience, and by data analysis can help in supporting this. So if you really see the value of data analysis, I think raw data, Maximo collects a lot of transaction data. So some of the reporting are kind of what we call it as baseline reporting, which will help in understanding what has happened. And as you become a little bit more sophisticated, you convert raw data into information analysis, get some insight. You can make a lot more informed decisions, and all your past experience and judgment can be combined with the data that you get, and you can make a lot more strategically advantageous decisions. And as the sophistication, you become more sophisticated, you will get to know why certain things happened, and then in some cases you would be able to predict what may happen in certain what-if scenarios, or certain things changes, what can happen, and etc. So value of data analysis kind of increases from a strategic advantage perspective once you start using it at an organization level. So having said all this, why are we relying less on data analysis? And different organizations have different challenges based on their maturity and the culture, etc. But overall, we have seen certain kind of common elements here, and some of them are listed here. But so leadership is one thing we have noticed as one of the key areas. Once whether it's maintenance managers or senior leadership, if they take interest in data analysis and they themselves are sold on this particular concept, it becomes a lot more easier to inculcate that type of culture within the organization. Sometimes people just, some of the people involved just may not know how data can be leveraged. So they may be using certain style of leadership in different ways, or decision making in ways based on just sheer experience, etc. But and the lack of knowledge of how data can be leveraged sometimes contributes to not using data as much. The other challenge we have seen is in poor data quality. Accuracy, consistency, completeness, and integrity of the data is suspect, and hence people don't trust the reports that they get or the analysis that they get. And once that trust factor is not there, then everything else becomes a lot more difficult. And it's a gradual process. We will talk about that. But the other thing we have noticed is there is no standardization. If there is a multi-site type of the companies which has multiple plants, different geographic locations, or different businesses, sometimes there is no standardization, the taxonomy is not there, so there is no standard failure codes, asset classes are sometimes not defined. So, or even if it is defined, sometimes the data is not entered correctly, or the meaning of some of those things are not communicated across the organization, so everybody perceives some of those values differently, and hence the way data is entered may not be right. So we have seen that as one of the challenge why data analysis is not used. And also everybody has other day-to-day issues, firefighting that they may be doing, and they're focusing on other methodologies, the money is invested in other priorities. And IT is same, they have other issues too, or other software or other applications to deal with, and they may not get time, or they may not have the resources to invest into these type of initiatives or this type of project. And of course, in today's economy, budget constraint is also driving some of these issues. But I think in nutshell, we have seen that the organization where the culture is different, then it's a lot more difficult for them to adopt to data analysis. So the overall lack of culture in making data-driven decisions is also one big factor why so much data is not used. So let's look at the second question I have is rate quality and integrity of your Maximo data in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. Again, the question is rate quality and integrity of your Maximo data in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. Please select one: very good, good, poor, very poor. Rahul, can you please administer?
Sure. We still have people voting in. We have 11% of people saying very good, actually 10% people saying very good, 48% saying good, 33% saying poor, 9% saying very poor.
Okay, so almost close to 40% people are not very confident about their data quality. All right. So that kind of fits into what we discussed earlier. So based on that and some other challenges, one of the things we have challenged with Maximo or asset-related data is the data itself is growing very fast. And there is Maximo, there are some other subsystems, and of course there is ERP data as well, which relates to Maximo or asset management. And those data sizes are growing. Data complexity is it's a lot more complex. Version 4 versus version 6 or 7 is a lot more complex from a data model perspective. So sometimes technical skills are not available. Sometimes maintenance managers and they are not quite familiar with the tools or the how data can be used. Then we also see some of the there is a scattered data. There could be production data, there could be some instrumentation data, some vibration analysis or oil analysis data. So some of that data sources is not integrated or the integrity doesn't exist. There is no easy way to integrate these different data sets. And then of course training
Salil, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have a very interesting question. Probably this is relevant at this slide, so maybe you can address it. One of the attendees is asking how to judge the data quality.
That's an interesting question, and I think we will, as I'll address, the data quality can be addressed in many, many different ways. And if you go back to the simple question of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. Now, accuracy is, of course, is one of the elements of judging the data quality. Consistency, I think, is what we are saying is, let's say you said we enter a data that is we entered a failure code, and if a particular pump is fails, and let's say there are 3 or 4 different reasons why it fails, instead of saying every time pump fails, we use consistently we use a relevant failure code, then of course the data quality will be improved. Completeness is kind of a little subjective depending on what kind of analysis one would like to do. That type of then in that case one can judge whether the data is complete and one can really use it to make some informed decision. So that was a great question. I think we'll address it as we go along. So going back to the challenges itself, here also is sometimes even from a technical standpoint, if the analysis is not designed it in such a way that it can be used, then sometimes some reports or some analysis is just not used across the company, and that also is another challenge we have seen, that people like to see the concise information rather than verbose or large reports, and then people like to have the ability to drill it down further, etc. So we have seen variety of things why certain things become difficult. So I have a third question here, which is again Maximo related. What reporting software do you currently use for Maximo? I'll repeat. What reporting software do you currently use for Maximo? And select one, please. Actuate, BERT, Crystal, Cognos, other. Rahul, can you let me know when you are done?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have the results. 10% are using Actuate, 40% are using BERT, 29% are using Crystal. No one here is today using Cognos, and 90% are using others, 19%.
Okay, I see. Okay, interesting. So I'm assuming most of the version 7 people have already started using BERT. All right. So this is kind of some of the questions are very relevant that we were discussing earlier. Is what reporting options really we have in version 6? The embedded tool was Actuate, and then they also gave us a facility to kind of have version 6, and then one can run the BERT report as well in the later part of version 6. And then, of course, there were some external tools that one can use, and there were different options how one can integrate it. So I think I'm assuming that based on the poll, most of the people who are using Actuate are probably on version 5 or 6. And as use 7, they may use other tool, Crystal or BERT. So this is what IBM had provided as an kind of technical capabilities. But each of these tools have advantages and disadvantages, what can be done with the tool and what cannot be done with the tool. And some can be natively run through Maximo, and some needs to be done outside Maximo. So having said that, let's look at if you're not currently on version 7, when do you plan to upgrade to 7X? The question is, if you are not currently on Maximo version 7, when do you plan to upgrade to 7X? 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18 months, or greater than 18 months?
We have to. Yeah, Sunil, we have the results. 50% of the people say 0 to 6 months. 25% of the people say 12 to 18 months, and 25% people say 18 months and more.
Okay. So I think considering most of the people who are already on 7, I think about 50%, and then maybe, so I think this is very relevant to spend more time on the version 7 reporting options. As you probably all know, the version 7 is, the embedded tool is of course Actuate, and the earlier part of version 7, IBM was allowing Actuate as well. And technically you can still integrate Actuate. Why would you do that? Probably is your business decision, but technically that's feasible. Then I think these are some other tools that really bring some other value depending on the company's tool of choice. In earlier part of version 7, Cognos, only these Report Studio and Query Studio was integrated. But I think in 7.5 onwards, you have full access to Cognos, all different tools of Cognos. And version 7 also allows business objects and host of other tools. The difference here, I guess, the external reporting tool versus the other, in this case, Cognos, BERT, Eclipse, and BO, is you can natively run most of the reports, everything from Maximo application itself. And I think that's a very powerful thing to do from an end user standpoint. It helps end users to actually, they don't have to physically go to another tool to run something, and there are some advantages and then there are some disadvantages. Also technically, you can have a backup, or let's say most of the Maximo installations have a replicated server, a database server. So we have seen some of the reports are pointed to the replicated server and not on the production server. That way you can do load balancing also. Some of those features are offered in version 7.2 onwards. And in 7.5, actually, there are a lot of good options from managing the performance of the report itself. And this landscape is very useful because each tool has its own advantages and disadvantages. So, but today we are going to kind of focus at a broad level how data can be leveraged. And some are related to kind of tool specific, and some are kind of general things that any tool will offer. Most of the tools will offer some basic features, and even by that also a lot of things can be done. And then some tools will have some added features which can really give you a lot more sophistication and usability from an end user point of view. So based on the out of the box what we get in Maximo, which is BERT in 7 and in 6 Actuate, these tools were really designed for basic operational reporting. When we say basic reporting is print asset list or print work order list, maybe create a work order report or maybe purchase order or any of these more operational, people have to use it on a day-to-day basis. That's really what most of the Actuate or BERT or Crystal report is really helpful for, and even Cognos web reporting as well. But and then Maximo also has the KPIs that you can define within Maximo Start Center. So it can give you some basic dashboard, but it doesn't have the flexibility what an external tool might give, like Cognos or a Business Objects or Hyperion or any of those tools can give. That of course Maximo interface doesn't have those features. So as you go higher up in the organization, the reporting needs change a little bit. If you are a reliability analyst, you would also like to do some ad hoc reporting and statistical reporting. QBR is an option by which a lot of ad hoc reporting is done, but again, it has some good features and then some limitations, which is the limitations of BERT itself. The QBR is an extension of BERT. So as you go higher up in the chain, people like to see a lot more consolidation or consolidated reports or more concise information so that they can do advanced analysis. At senior level, they may just like to see scorecards, dashboards. So in Maximo, as such, out of the box, obviously, when you work directly with the production database, there are other challenges related to performance, and hence there is not extensive ad hoc reporting cannot be done. Or even if you are using QBR, there are some limitations on that. So a lot of people do the basic reporting and then copy paste in or export it into Excel and do further analysis. So that's some of the end users use that. And in none of these have any formal performance management type of reporting. When I say performance management, I'm talking more of the asset performance management. So if you are going to set some goals, set some limits, which some of it can be defined within the KPI that you can define within the Maximo interface, but it's really not designed to be a performance management tool. So a product like Cognos has some specific tools that allows you to do performance management. So another question is, we have seen a lot of people like to see some ad hoc data analysis. So what tool do you use for Maximo data, ad hoc data analysis? Again, what do you use for Maximo ad hoc data analysis? QBR is one option. Access/Excel, Crystal BO, Cognos, don't use any. What do you use for Maximo ad hoc data analysis? Rahul, are we done?
Just one moment, maybe. Yeah, we have the results here. 30% people are saying Crystal, 45% saying Excel, 0% Cognos, 20% external tool, and 5% don't use any.
All right. So primarily, many people use Crystal and Excel. I think that's an interesting because that's the easiest tools which are available for most of the users. So let's look at some examples here. So I'll just try to share some of the examples that we have seen good companies use. So let's look at I think I have a dashboard, or actually this is called heat map. This is an interesting way and end user can see, let's say we have a multiple, let's say over 100 pumps or 100 motors or robots let's say if you're an automobile company and you want to see operational hours and its impact on total downtime or total maintenance cost or number of failures or time to repair. And the color here indicates the measure itself. So the red means, of course, it's negative, and green means it's good. And this the size of the rectangle here means the operational hours. So what we are seeing is as there are more operating hours on a particular piece of equipment, then the problems you are seeing persistent across it's kind of, sometimes it's expected. But the interesting thing is some cases we see that the relatively operating hours on that piece of equipment is low, but it is still red. Now those are the problems. A problem equipment may be vendor. One can look at the vendor or look at some of the other maintenance practices at that location, or some other things, or operator issues, etc. So this type of visualization allows one to look at multiple assets or similar kind of asset at one shot. And this was just as an example of, let's say, pumps, and looking at downtime or looking at total maintenance cost or mean time to failure, etc. So one can have different types of measures. So this type of techniques allows you to look at multiple assets at one time. Then let's look at another example is we want to see the overall trend within the organization, whether the work order count is increasing or, so this is an example whether the workload for the entire organization is how they are doing. Sometimes depending on the organization's practices, not all work orders are entered. So sometimes then they change a policy that all the work orders have to be recorded within Maximo. So as you mature within in the life cycle of Maximo usage itself, some of these things might change, and some of these KPIs can be used to monitor these activities. So, and then of course, some of these type of reports can be further linked to the actual data itself. So one can analyze based on the trend. If they see certain things which are not in agreement, then they can look at those things, those details for those issues. Let's look at some other things. Again, it's a similar, here we are doing a 12 months. For 12 months, we are looking at the work order count. Another way to look at this, similar report that we saw earlier. We are also monitoring downtime, labor hours. So this can help actually. So in this case, there are only 5 factors that they wanted to see as a performance type of issues. How many work order counts, and how many are how much is the labor hours, cost, and mean time to failure. So maybe that's one way they wanted to monitor how the effectiveness of the different asset reliability and maintenance initiatives are within the organization. Another example is OEE, so original equipment effectiveness. Some companies monitor this. It's a rather difficult KPI to monitor because of it requires 3 factors here, and sometimes some companies record these things, and in some cases they don't. So that kind of makes it difficult. One has to record these factors, because some of it, the quality, for example, will come from outside, some other external data source that needs to be combined with the Maximo data source. So some of these things become a little bit harder. So this is another example where a dashboard like this can be used for senior management. So in this case, we are trying to monitor 5 different areas. One is more related to availability and reliability. Then there are 8 factors related to asset the maintenance management itself, like planning, compliance, ratios of CM work orders with the entire work orders or PM work orders, schedule compliance, wrench time, time to repair, average residue time for work order, response time for the work order or work request, overtime, and then there is another is related to budget, and also. So as one can see here, in this particular case, there was a target value that everybody wanted to monitor. So in Maximo KPI screen, when we define in Start Center, some of those KPIs we can actually define. So some of that data was used to actually draw these figures as, or these particular graphs. So on the other side, we are also monitoring the PM effectiveness. Now this type of presentation, actually this is a multiple reports in one report. This kind of allows the end users to actually look at things in a much better way. This gives the maintenance manager, if they feel that there is something not right, they can investigate it further. So let's look at another. This is another maintenance excellence summary. In this case, they are just monitoring the availability, mean time between failure, mean time to repair, and then by asset class, and then one can actually drill it down further to at the asset level also. So this is at asset class, and then you can actually drill it down further to asset level. Now, some of these KPIs, like in this case MTBF, is a very difficult, can be a difficult KPI to calculate unless there is a consistency. And this is an example where the quality of data matters, because if you have redundancy in your setup, then let's say a pump fails, and now a new pump is replaced, or a secondary pump takes over, and the pump is replaced with another pump, and this pump goes into the shop, and they repair it and puts it back onto the shelf to be used for some other areas. Now, in all that transaction, if it is not recorded, or if it is not monitored when it was actually repaired and how much operating hours are on it, maybe some of that data might be in some other systems, or if it is recorded in Maximo and a proper timing and all the when the pump was moved from the shop floor to the shop, repair shop, some of that data, if it is not recorded correctly, then it becomes very difficult to calculate MTBF. Also, the holidays, because MTBF is very important based on the operational hours, and some of those factors. But once you set these processes in place to collect data, then it can be a very, very useful tool to make good decisions, and one can always find exceptions. So let's look at some other areas like asset lifecycle management. So this is one example, is just getting a census of your asset data, or the total assets that you might have. How many are in production? How many are in use? By location, different sites. One can do aging. So some of this kind of gives you a sense of how much assets do we have. And I think Maximo also allows you to record the replacement value or the current whenever it was purchased, the purchase value itself. And some companies record the bill of material as well, so they know what really went into that asset. Now, granted, all the assets may not have all this data, and maybe one can have a criticality analysis, and this type of analysis you might do only on the critical assets itself. So some of these census data can be useful in kind of using, if one is doing failure analysis, one can say, okay, is there any relationship between the aging of asset and failure? If so, what is my kind of threshold where I'm seeing the increase in the trend for failures as the assets age. So another example could be just utilization itself, and this is a simple, but this can be converted into a graphical report. But this is a detailed report done at asset level, but one can actually look at it from at an asset class itself. So how many pumps, what's the utilization, things like that. And some of the data may be directly coming from Maximo, or some can be from a production SCADA data or any other instrumentation data or factory automation data that one might have. So there may be ability to kind of use data from multiple systems. Of course, labor resources, tools, all of that, one can actually look at the labor utilization to compute wrench time, look at different factors that go into the utilization and how much work was planned, how much was scheduled, and then were there any emergencies, etc. So one easy way to monitor another factors we have seen is the work order regular hours versus overtime hours. And then this is done for each of the labor person ID, but depending on what the objective is, one can actually look at department and consolidate it, etc. And then obviously the ability to drill it down for each. And this crosstab report is actually done for different months in the for the trailing 12 months. And this allows the managers to look at the trend. Some people get a lot more overtime than the others, and they can then maybe find out what might be the case. So from costing, there are various options within costing, and I'll share some examples where this is a business objects example where Excelsius is used to do some of these type of. This is an example where we are just comparing the planning effectiveness, where what was the planned cost versus actual cost. And this is done for different sites here, and want to kind of for a particular period it was analyzed. And so this is a nice interface by which users can really interact with this type of interface. It's a lot more friendlier from an end user perspective. Again, same type of example, actual versus estimated, but it's a little different interface. These are different sites. The time period, or you can compare, do a quarterly type of analysis for different quarters, year-end projection or YTD. And this allows end user to, and of course some of these reports can be made a lot more broad-based as well. So this is just as an example of how estimated and actual work, the cost it's recorded. And then from here, one can actually go to the detail report. Detail report can be a lot more, can have information related to labor hours, material cost, tool cost, or external service vendors cost. And here it is attributed for each failure code, and then and for each asset. So one can go to that level of details. Actually, most of the time, when you do a summarized report, you will actually start with the detailed report and then work it upwards and try to get a consolidated summary. Another example could be, again, this is a another presentation. So just to give you a sense of how data can be visualized, similar information, but one can present it in a different way so that the end user gets a flavor of different aspects of business here. Again, from there we can go to a detailed report. This is another example where one can actually look at a supervisor level what the costs are, and look at it from a effectiveness of work that is performed by different supervisors. This example shows you from the location standpoint. In certain life sciences type of organization or even other organization, it may be important to monitor the cost at a location level rather than at the asset level, because sometimes we replace the asset and there could be a different asset number itself or asset that is used. A different pump is used, a different motor is used. So it might be worthwhile to look at it analysis-wise from an asset perspective. And again, we can then drill it down to further details. So we are looking at the asset count and cost by class, looking at the labor hours. And also, here the last one is actually interesting from a management standpoint. We are looking at the most costly assets, asset class. So this kind of allows the maintenance managers and decision makers to look at what is costing them the most from a maintenance budget. Here we are looking at from a location standpoint, which location is costing the highest. And this can give a lot of information to kind of identify areas for improvement. Maybe that location requires some different type of configuration, or the asset vendor might not be right, or things like that. Similar to this, one can have, again, top 25 assets class by average maintenance cost. And this report can be actually further designed in such a way that you can actually go to the further class of assets itself. At a high level, you might do it only at the asset class, and then you might go further down into the different asset class, etc., the material cost, or depending on the aging of the asset, etc. So this kind of helps analyze what is contributing to that cost itself, and the decision maker can then decide. There are some other techniques that can be used to get to the details as well. So again, this is another example of 25 maintenance cost center. So if you have some sort of GL code or something that you are attributing, then maybe that's another thing to monitor. Again, some things also need to be done from a statistical standpoint. This is an example where statistical techniques are used for total life cycle costing. So in this case, different techniques are used to actually compute the total cost over the life of, in this case, it's electrical chain, or it could be any other asset class. But one can actually look at from a based on historic trend, one can actually project what the total cost of maintenance might be. This can be very useful when one is looking at when a new piece of equipment is bought. One can look at historically what it costed to maintain it, and if you're doing a vendor analysis, one can actually use this to decide. From a cost control point of view, these are another techniques IR charts that can be used. So if the certain types of costs are normal in 95% interval, then probably you may not worry about it. But if it is, let's say, more than 105% average, then one would like to see why the cost increased or why in that particular situation. So basic idea is to identify outliers, identify something that is out of ordinary, and the whole management by exception. So you identify all the exceptions and then look at the from a management standpoint. Let's look at some other example from a failure analysis. Again, I'm just going to focus on certain type of reports that can help. So a simple Pareto analysis, if you have a failure codes, if you are using consistent failure codes, then it might be useful. It will be useful in doing Pareto analysis. So you would know what failure codes are causing the most maintenance in terms of emergency maintenance or corrective maintenance. And in that case, you can identify, and maybe some of the problems can be resolved, some can be are technically feasible to resolve, and some may not be feasible to resolve, but at least you would be able to give these problems to the engineering people, and then engineering can work it out. So, but the same in this case, I'm showing just the failure causes and the number of work or number of failures. But the same thing can be actually analyzed further. If you look at 3-4 different components, then it might give you a different picture, and this will allow you to identify the high value asset class or failure class that one can address. So for example, here we are monitoring asset downtime, then we are also looking at the work order count, which hopefully is related, and then the total maintenance cost, and then also the time to repair. Now, some failure codes you might see overlapping in all the 4 different analysis. Maybe that's what one has to focus on. Maybe there is a those are the areas that will give you the maximum benefit, if maximum ROI on your maintenance dollars. So some of this type of visualization can actually allow you to focus your maintenance efforts in a different direction than what you would do otherwise. Similarly, from a cost perspective, you can actually look at a root cause analysis from a maintenance budget perspective. Look at what failure class is taking the maximum dollars, and then look at what problems, then what causes, etc. So that you can actually build the a report which will then you can figure out maybe that's what you need to spend your or focus your attention to. So in the interest of time, we have different options here. So I'm going to look at some PM, look ahead. If one can actually do optimum PM interval. Sometimes we over PM things. There could be, if you have a similar piece of equipment across the organization, maybe that would allow you to calculate this and figure out what the optimum PM intervals should be. So I'm going to rush through some of the examples here because of in the interest of time. This is another interesting. You will see the PM dedication here, and if there is any relationship to the corrective maintenance itself or reactive maintenance in this case. So we see that in some cases here there is a lot more corrective maintenance. The PM dedication is high, but at the same time there is a lot more CM. So maybe that is what one needs to go and focus on. So this is another way to measure your PM effectiveness. Again, there are different compliance type of reporting one can do. Look at the PM trend, And some of these things, I'm just kind of going through some of these examples so that you understand how this all can be used. This PM dashboards. So let's look at some reliability related examples. From a statistical standpoint, there are some ways you can actually calculate Weibull analysis and then project your MTBF or MTTR, and also see your, what will affect your MTBF and MTTR. So there are some examples are more designed to specifically address certain type of analysis. From a spare parts, there are plenty different types of analysis one can do. It could be as simple as ABC analysis, understand the slow-moving and non-moving stock items, look at the obsolete inventory, inventory that was not touched for a long time. And then some can be very simple reports, as you can see. Or you can do an economic order quantity. So many times we set a min-max, but one can actually link it with your maintenance goals as well. So I think if there is any further you all can send me an email and I can share some of these examples also. So in the interest of time, what I will do is I'll go back to the PPT here, and let's look at a bigger picture here. So at very high level, every organization has different goals. And this is a classic goals achievement model that one might have within their organization. So I'm just listing examples of goals here. Reduce total cost of asset ownership, increase availability, increase reliability, maybe reduce energy cost, life extension. So there could be different goals, compliance, etc. And then every company has different strategies. It could be different combination of strategies, and you may not have a specific name to this strategy, but there will be some ways that you are trying to manage your enterprise assets. And while doing that, we are using taking help of Maximo to record certain transactions. And there are various subject areas that we manage within Maximo related to asset life cycle, work management, planning, etc. And all this is really and while we are doing this, asset also are creating other set of data, whether it's sometimes inspection data is stored in Maximo, or it could be in a different database. Engineering has its own automation, etc. Now, some might be relevant, some may not be relevant, but that's the trick, and that's where engineering and operations and reliability and maintenance, all the teams have to work together and see how this data can be brought together, either logically or in a physical form. And we have to ensure data quality and integrity, so you can combine all these data sources. And then look at what metrics you can build, alerts, scorecards, and different data analysis modeling that one can do. And the whole idea is to get to an actionable information that a decision maker can decide, use it to make a decision and take some actions. And this all linked to your primary goals, which will help you monitor your performance. And all these goals that you are set, so some of these things will keep changing as you will revise your goals, you will refine your strategies, you will understand what is working, what is not working, and then kind of this circle continues. And in some companies it could be 3-month cycle, in some companies it could be 24-month cycle. In some cases, some goals are short-term, some could be long-term. So this whole process kind of evolves as we operate all our assets, or we manage all these assets. All right, so the whole, in the end, really what we are trying to do is get insight and make informed decision. So from a raw data to actually bringing it all together, get information, and make informed decisions for your asset maintenance, reliability and maintenance. So in the end, most of us we all are using Maximo. So so we all have some systems, processes, people, and the different departments. So we must be getting good results. The fact that most of you are using Maximo, I'm sure you must be getting results. Now the question is, how do we go from good to great? And I think we believe that this was a three-legged stool or a three-wheel vehicle. Now let's add another vehicle, which is analytics. So data analysis will kind of help you reinforce some of these, the wheels itself. It will reinforce some of the practices, make your Maximo much more robust. Processes will be improved, people can be trained, and the whole analysis itself will improve, and that will give you the world-class results. And that has happened with, as you start using data, most of the big companies, most of the mature companies have started getting better results. So I think I'm kind of, there is not much time here, so it's only 1 minute. So Rahul, if there are any questions, maybe 1 or 2 questions I can take because of the time. If we can do more, I'll try to accommodate that. Are there any questions, Rahul?
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'll give you some questions. One of the questions is, are you able to drill down into the data set behind the KPIs?
Yes, if it is set up right, then it can be done. So like in case of Maximo KPIs that we see it in the start center, it cannot be drilled down directly because it's just giving you the end result. But one can set up within BERT or Crystal or any tool that one might be using to not only show the report, the KPI itself, but it can be linked to the actual what makes up that KPI and show the details as well.
A lot of participants are asking, is it possible to watch the webinar again? Yeah, sure. We will be uploading the webinar in 24 hours, and we will send you the link. We have a question: how much would a project cost in terms of cost and time per areas?
That is a subjective, depending on what type of analysis. It can be as short a project as 2 weeks to it can be 2 years, depending on what one would like to do. But if it's a small area, it can be, and most of the time one can start small, look at what can be done with the existing data, look at how that can be used, and then little by little keep educating everyone involved, and then evolve over a period of time and become more mature. So I guess the answer is not straightforward, but this can be as small as 2 to 4 weeks, and then some projects might be larger depending on the scope of the project.
There are a lot of people who want to actually know how they can see the reports of different subject matters as per their interest. If you want to see some reports around PM, if you want to see around work on stuff.
So what I think what I can do is they can email me, or I think they can go to assetanalytics.com, and there is a library, there is a resources page where we have I have put out some samples. Whatever I shared today, some of the samples are out there. But we will be happy to, I'll be happy to send them or share them or talk to them if they want to see some more reports.
We have one more question. What methodology do you propose to start this?
That's a little harder, but that goes like what I said earlier. Look at what you have, what kind of data analysis one can do, and then they can then kind of that may be the best start, and then look at the limitations of what that data is, and if they are not already collecting that data, then they start collecting, or if they are already collecting it but they are not sure about the quality of that data, then maybe they need to change some business practices. And so the methodology is a combination of things. Start using the data, do some reports, educate, communicate with everyone involved, and then kind of evolve.
We have one more question, very interesting one and a relevant one. How they can leverage our library of reports?
That is most of this library is really we are just we help customers. The library was built over a period of 12 years with working with different customers. So obviously that is, we are not actually this is not for selling, but they can actually use it if at all we are engaged with them for whatever work, consulting work that we might do. So they can use it for their for viewing it or for understanding how data can be used, and that really helps us to jumpstart the adoption of analytics within maintenance and reliability.
We have one more question. Which would be the order of cost report to be developed? I mean, which one of them should be developed first for new implementation?
That's an interesting. I think I did not touch on the work order management and planning and scheduling, but most of the installations that we have worked with, they use work order, as the primary source of collecting data. So I think maybe any reports around work order management, then PM might be the second next one. And then, failure analysis, all of that. And if they are using spare parts, etc., then they can do the spare parts purchase, all of that. But I would start with work order management because that's where majority of transactions are recorded within Maximo. I think we are over time.
Yeah.
So I really thank all of you for attending this webinar. And I hope it was informative, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Please feel free to email me on this. Again, this is Sunil. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks everyone for your, and it was amazing to see that 95% of the people are still here. Now people are
thank
leaving.
you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you all.
If you guys have any questions or if you want to share any information with us, you are most welcome. Please send us an email, and we will keep in touch with you and we'll keep you informed about our next webinar. Thank you, everyone. You have a great day.
Thank you all. Yeah, bye-bye.